So when you're saying, I know we're unmuted, I don't care. When you're saying you're glad that he did, you're not talking about Jesus. You're talking about the guy that put peanut butter on a hamburger for the
Yes,
first
I
time.
am. I'm glad that he put peanut butter on a hamburger.
Welcome to Unscripted.
There is at least 10 minutes of time where Marshall and I just talk about stuff, and we were on a really funny conversation about food trucks. So
yes.
So in the comments, man, let us know what's your favorite non-chain place. That's
a good question. Like,
what's your
not your chain restaurants, but even just like local places around here, or maybe somewhere that you're from. Like, what's and you might need to put like what style of food it is too, because we may not recognize it. So
there's just because in Bentonville, there's always, I mean, Rogers too, but
for sure
there's these scenes that are coming up, and it's like, oh man, I would not think to eat the style of what they're saying, but I'm gonna try it.
Yeah, it's hard. That's hard to narrow down for me. Like, there's so many. Gosh, I'm gonna waste time.
So you guys let us know. Scott Savage said peanut butter is good on burgers. That's right.
It is. I'm agreeing with you, Scott. It is.
Yeah.
That's what we were saying. Is just like, the lyrics of the song talking about Jesus and his sacrifice. I'm so glad he did. And I was just saying, we just applied that to whoever came up with the idea of peanut butter on a hamburger. I'm so glad he did.
Thank you, Scott, for being in our corner. Appreciate that. Welcome to Unscripted. Marshall and Brandon.
Yeah. We're here for spiritual encouragement.
Also,
peanut butter and hamburgers.
I was say local food suggestions.
Yeah.
Let us know.
Yeah. By the way, so right off the top of your head, what's the chain? What's
the chain?
I'm sorry, what's the non-chain? Yeah.
Oh man.
Okay, I can answer this for him. I don't know if it counts or not. Airship Coffee.
Oh yeah.
Airship Coffee.
That's my space.
That should be his middle name, Brandon Airship Coffee Dodd.
Yeah. As our building is not quite occupiable yet, where I can go, that has been my office, and there's the.
But that was your space before the construction stuff.
It was, but it's become like a
second home.
Yeah, and it's to the point where is it cool that a lot of the baristas know your name, or like that's a new level of like, dude, that's so lame.
Okay, so dating myself a little bit. Some of you will understand this reference, but the show Cheers. Every time Norm walked in on Cheers, everyone was like, Norm. This is what happens at Airship when Brandon walks in.
I'm like, hey, it's my friend Marshall. That Marshall. Yeah. Scott's saying NASCAR sushi. If you're actually talking about like NASCAR sushi, then I don't know. Like you go to NASCAR to eat sushi. I don't know about that.
Yeah, is it sushi at the NASCAR race, or is there a restaurant called NASCAR Sushi?
I would like to know.
I'm
going to Google it after this.
Okay.
Okay. What about you though? Before we continue on.
So hard. So like, probably just right now. I'm just going to say Smoking Joe's barbecue.
Well, that's right in your wheelhouse of like
meat and lots of it.
For not a bad price.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I was going to say like the place that I shed a small tear over was the Heidi Ho Drive-In in Rogers. Some of you will remember the Heidi Ho. Amazing burgers and fries and dip cones. You know the dip cones that you get at Dairy Queen? Yeah. They did those there. So much better. So much taller, first of all. Just the amount of ice cream. And then to dip it in the chocolate.
It was probably fresher than Dairy Queen's.
It's probably the same kind of frozen ice cream machine. It's like what we had at Green Valley or whatever. But, the Heidi Ho. Some of y'all, whoever knows and remembers the Heidi Ho, as soon as I said Heidi Ho, I guarantee there was an audible, as soon as you heard me say it. So...
Yeah, we've got, Scott says it's from Sushi King. Kate is saying Wrights. And Ashton says...
Oh, Wrights is good. Yeah,
Suzy Q. Love Suzy Q.
Suzy Q is good. I'd take Suzy Q now, but Heidi Ho was better than Suzy Q. I'm just going to say it. Fight me if you want to. But that's the thing. Okay. So we've been talking about heaven and earth, right?
That's right. Talk about heaven and earth.
We could open up a restaurant and call it Heaven and Earth.
Oh.
All right, put a pin in that. We're coming back to that another time.
You heard it here folks.
So just kind of a quick recap of what we've done so far. We have talked about how God's intention or original plan was to bring heaven to earth. Like he created the heavens and the earth, but those are supposed to be united. Mm-hmm. Those are supposed to be kind of occupying the same space. God is here with us. We are with God. Heaven is here on earth with us. That was the original plan. We messed that up with Adam and Eve. And one of the main reasons for that was they were trying to take the place of God. and be in his spot. And the punishment was, okay, God had to send him away.
Yep.
So now we have a rift. There's not heaven on earth or heaven with earth anymore. There's a definitive
and earth.
Yeah, a definitive distinction. Yeah. Generations later, we try that again with the Tower of Babel, and this is what we were talking about last week. And human beings trying to occupy God's space again and trying to set themselves up
forcefully, themselves up.
And not what we were talking about was like not to be with God, but to actually take his spot. We want to make a name for ourselves. We want to be God's, and put ourselves into heaven, which is never what God's plan was. And so he scattered those people. Fast forward several generations, you got this guy, Abraham, and God says, okay, I'm going to bring heaven and earth back together again, and I'm going to do it through this amazingly flawed, unimportant individual. And,
very important.
And here we go.
And so that's the plan enacting, is God talking with Abraham and saying, hey, guess what? Through you, the entire world's going to be blessed. He's just one dude, and also he's old. And he's childless. Yeah. That's awesome. And so God uses that both to show off like, hey, guess what? Nothing's impossible with God. And two, we're gonna make something happen, but it starts with you. Yeah. This is where it begins. Yeah. So that's a really quick recap of how we got into the point that we're at tonight. And just kind of keeping in the back of your minds this whole concept of we have these two spaces. We have heaven, we have earth. And that was never what God intended was originally for those to be separate. That's right. But it was us. It was human beings that messed up that plan. And most of Scripture is focused on bringing those two things back together again. And at least it's happening in the background of, man, how is God pushing these things?
And
back?
How is he reconciling those things back
and
together again?
How are we a part of that plan too?
Right, because we are. So that's where we're going to get to eventually. So we'll continue with that theme tonight. Okay.
Yeah. Let's just because we're good, man. Let's dive right in, like we would to one of these burgers, a Heidi Ho burgers. I'm just dive right in. Okay, I know I'd never had it.
I know.
You can make me one at some point, I guess. All right.
Well, I know the guy that used to make them. I think he's still
really. All right, so next Unscripted is just going to be me. Let's go to Genesis chapter 28. Open it up on your phones, wherever you need to go to grab that. Genesis chapter 28. We're skipping, not generations, I guess, but we're skipping ahead just a little bit.
A couple of generations.
Yeah. We're focused on a man named Jacob. Okay, so before we get into all of that, this is a story that we've all heard in Bible class and everything as children. It's kind of could, at least in my mind, has been very trivialized to, it's cute, cool little story, and I think it's lost a lot of its significance, and we're going to kind of talk about that a little bit too.
I remember seeing this on flannel graph when I was in Bible school when I was a little kid.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much me too. It's hard to not think about it not as a cartoon.
Right. Yeah, for sure. In my mind.
Before we get there, and Kate, I'm glad that you're with us because I feel like that you're and Marshall's answers are going to be pretty similar.
Okay.
But the question is, where are certain places in your life that you just feel closer to God? Like you feel like God's presence is just palpable. I don't know. That's a word. It's like, it's something you can grasp. It's something that, I don't know. We feel that sometimes in church, and I love these moments that you just feel like you can feel those things so much more. But I know with certainty that there's definitely a couple of places that either I go consistently or have been in the past. It's like, this is holy ground.
I'm actually here with God right now.
This is holy ground. Like, So I feel like I said, I feel like I know what your answer is, but
so first off,
one or two.
Please share with us where yours would be.
Yeah.
And maybe that's next to a river. Maybe that's a mountaintop. Maybe,
What's cool is that they're all different too. So
exactly
having different answers, I think is like, oh, that's cool. That's cool. You got that.
So, the easy answer obviously is Green Valley Bible Camp.
Is he wrong though?
it's what Scotty and some of them refer to as Jesus land, right? I mean, that's where God is at Green Valley. But I have had experiences there where I don't think it's because of the facility or the location. It's because of what we're doing and who is there experiencing it. So can I give a little bit of a different answer?
Yeah.
Just a time, not necessarily that location, but a time where I felt that was at a youth ministers conference when my oldest was maybe 2.5 years old. And we had this conference all day, speakers and different activities and stuff. And then we're in this big banquet room. There's about 400 youth ministers and their spouses and, kids and stuff. And we're just worshiping, just singing. And there's a praise team and they're just picking random songs. Like it wasn't even necessarily scripted out. There's like, hey man, let's sing this one. They throw it up on the screen and
that's cool for a conference.
It's a whole bunch of, everybody's just singing together. And I remember we were singing When the Night is Falling, which was a fairly new song to me at the time.
Yeah.
And so we're singing that, and some people are standing, some people are I'm in this banquet room in this hotel. Yeah. The lights are down. We're singing this, and some people are on their knees. Some people got their hands up, and I'm singing along. And I look, and we've just been, because our second child was just was an infant in a car seat, and so he's sitting on the ground next to us, but our 2.5-year-old is standing on top of this big, the big round banquet tables with the white tablecloths. He's standing in the middle of it, and he's just mimicking whatever else he sees from everybody else. So cool. Hands are up, or he's clapping, and he can't even, he don't know the song. He can't say the words, but he's kind of trying to sing along with everybody. Oh my gosh. Dang. I was like, the angels are here. This is heaven, right? It was just one of those moments. I'm like, I feel so connected to just the pure presence of God. Yeah. It was one of those moments. Now, if I went back to that hotel, would I feel that way? I don't know necessarily. If I go back to Green Valley, I feel that way. But
maybe not necessarily that particular banquet hall or something.
Yeah, that's right.
I feel that.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I would have broken down and be like, dude, this is too much. And I mean, honestly, that's probably what I would do in any of those places too. But Phyllis is kind of where I'm at. She says, out in nature. And Kate actually says something that I'm thinking, he says exactly what I was going to say. He said, the journey through nature and up a mountain has always been an awakening time for me. Trek solo time. I literally...
You have that written down.
Have it written down. Trek solo time. So going on trek, you're up in a mountain, and after a really hard climbing day, they give you 3 hours of go be by yourself and be alone with God. And I remember the first year that I went, dreading it. Like, dude, 3 hours. Like, what am I going to do? That, out of the whole thing, was like my favorite part. And that's crazy because I love it, but I'm right there. And he said, and the nights, no matter how easy or hard it is to set up, God's always there for me, exactly like Jacob in his experience.
Yeah. Hey. Yeah. Okay. So let's y'all keep answering, by the way. Don't stop answering.
Yeah.
But let's read through it. You want to read or you want me to?
Sure. You got it. Okay. I get it. No, he said, sure. Okay. I got it. Okay.
Go.
All right. Verse 10 of chapter 28 of Genesis. It says that Jacob left Beersheba and he went toward Haran. And he came to a certain place, and he stayed there that night because the sun had set. And taking one of the stones of the place, he put it under his head and lay down in that place to sleep. And he dreamed, and behold, there was a ladder set up on the earth, and on top of it reached to heaven. And behold, the angels of God were ascending and descending on it. And behold, the Lord stood above it. And he said, I'm the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father, and the God of Isaac. The land on which you lie, I will give you and give to you and your offspring. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth. You shall spread abroad to the west and the east and the north and to the south. And you and your offspring shall, all the families, and your offspring shall, all the families of the earth be blessed. I'm reading from the ESV, I apologize. Behold, I am with you, and I will keep you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you. Then Jacob awoke from his sleep. He said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know it. And he was afraid, and he said, how awesome is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and this is the gate of heaven. And then the next couple of verses are him setting up, he named it a stone pillar, poured oil on it, and it's important. But yeah. So Jacob's ladder. Mine says Jacob's dream, but I learned about it as Jacob's ladder.
Yeah.
So we're talking about heaven and earth. How does this even relate to what
Okay, so just a quick, just in case you don't know who this Jacob guy is, we talked about Abraham last week. They got this promise from God. Jacob is his grandson. So, and Jacob, to this point, not the best guy in the world. His name actually means cheater or liar, and he kind of fulfills that. So he lies and steals, a birthright from his older brother. He steals a blessing from his older brother. His older brother wants to kill him, and that's why he's leaving now.
Takes advantage of his blind father.
Takes advantage of his blind dad, lies to him.
Whoops.
Just to get ahead, just to kind of look out for number one. And now is being sent hundreds of miles away to go find a wife. And at the same time on the run from his brother who wants to kill him. So that's this guy that God appears to.
And the grandson, having been told stories of this God that promised this land, descendants, blessings to all nations, and Kyrie being a part of that. And he's reminded of that too, which is cool.
Yeah.
God's finding him out in the wilderness and just saying, hey, I don't want you to forget. Here's what I have planned for you. And he says it again there, all of the families of the earth will be blessed. That's verse 14.
Right.
So he's reminding him, like, this is the plan.
Right. So we share that with you, but we want to pay more attention to the actual, like, what he saw and what he kind of, how he viewed that and how he viewed himself in it. So,
well, there's a statue at ACU, Anglican Christian University, and it depicts Jacob's ladder, and it's these angels. It's awesome. After this, go and look it up on Google. Just type ACU Jacob's ladder, and it's this huge bronze statues of these angels that are ascending and descending, and it looks like it defies nature, just like how's it standing up, and it's really, really cool. But so, I mean, right here, I've got a footnote in mine. It's this ladder that goes up and down to heaven, and mine has a footnote that says, or a flight of steps.
Yes.
And most likely, and whatever it is, it's Jacob, and he's dreaming, and he sees a bridge, not really a ladder, I think, with rungs like we would think. I think of like a large flight of stairs. That
because if you go back to the ancient Hebrew that is originally written in, it wasn't a climbing ladder like we climb up on the side of climb up on the roof of the house.
No,
it's stairs.
Yeah, the context
Some
would
kind
have
of
been
stairs.
Old temples. Talk about Googling ziggurats that are just like these almost pyramid looking things, but it's this long stairway that goes up to the place of worship. And so he sees something that is like that. At least that's the same words it uses here. And it's touching on earth is what it says, and it rises and reaches into heaven. That's verse 12. Or the skies. Remember, that's what we've talked about. So goes from human space.
Right. Here's where we live.
God's
and
space.
These steps go up to wherever God is.
Yeah.
And there's angels going up and down on it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
And that's what he says at the very end right there in verse 17 is like, and this is the gate of heaven. So he's like, so we talked about the two spaces, and God said, okay, through you, Abraham, and your family, I'm going to reunite those spaces. And those are two separate spaces. Right here, there's like this, they're like touching.
Yeah.
They're not quite overlap, but like I like what the Bible Project says in this. It's kind of like a portal. It's like you can't go. You yourself can't step onto the ladder to ascend into heaven.
You're not coming up these stairs.
And he says it there. And behold, I did not know that this is a place of God.
Right.
I don't remember exactly what he says there, but Jacob awoke and he said, surely the Lord is in this place, and I did not know. That's verse 16. So like, God's like, hey, let me pull back the curtain really quick. Look at this. It's this staircase that goes in and out of heaven, attaching heaven and earth. This portal where he can see spiritual beings coming, angels coming back and forth, that connects God's space and human space. And he didn't even know that it was there. It's this random place as he's napping on a rock.
But it's interesting because it's not, well, two things. One, you talked about like him seeing it as an interest to a temple. And again, back in this ancient culture, over the generations of people kind of forgetting who God was and making their own gods, you had temples of some sort, or even if it was like up on a mountainside, there was a pathway. There were kind of some steps up to like, that's where this god or goddess dwells. And there was kind of just some kind of a pathway up to that,
There's an ascent to get there.
He had to have seen that at some point in his lifetime. And that's all that he can.
And God's giving him a context.
That's all that he can attach that to. Yeah. So he's seen this path. And this is not to other gods and goddesses that he knows people around him are worshiping. This is, this guy talks to him.
You didn't even have to guess. I wonder which God this is. It says, that's the first thing. I am the Lord, the God of Abraham, your father. The ones that you heard stories about, this is me. And
that's me. But he reckoned, when he says, this is the gate of heaven, this is the gate to the God, not the gate to these other gods and goddesses. This is the one that promised my grandpa this whole, and my dad, this whole promise. And now he's promising it to me. So there's a recognition there, at least on his part, of there's a bridge here and there's a connection here. But the other piece that I think is interesting is it's not, he didn't create this space. God revealed it to him.
This is a space that was there.
And he didn't realize it at first, and God reveals it to him. And it's God making the effort. It's God who puts the vision in his mind. It's God who's sending the angels up and down. Like he has no control over this. So that's important to me as we're talking again about heaven and earth. The two times that we've seen mankind attempt this reunification of heaven and earth so far, mankind has tried to get themselves to heaven and have failed miserably. This is God going, okay, let me do this.
Yeah.
Let me bring this closer. Let me open this portal, if you will. Let me, stop.
Yeah.
Let me be the one to bridge the gap.
Stop trying to be gods yourselves. I'm going to bring
quit trying to do what's my job.
And he reaffirms that too. He's like, you don't have to do anything, man. Mm-hmm. And that's so cool. He doesn't really ask very much of him. He doesn't ask very much of anything of him. He's just like, through you, I'm going to bless everybody.
Yeah. And I'm not going to leave you. I'm this here. Presence that you're seeing right now is going to continue to be with you.
And I think an important fact that we need to think about too is, think about Abraham and the flawed man that he was, and this is his whole family is very flawed.
Yeah,
it's reminiscent of man.
Can you say Jacob's worse? It kind of seems like it.
There's could make a case.
Non-redeeming qualities in both.
Whoops. Yeah, Abraham's family as a whole. Abraham's family as a whole is a very good portrait of our families.
Yeah, dysfunction for sure.
Just function and just trying to do things right. It doesn't really work. But yeah, here, think about, here's some flawed people. And like, Jacob wasn't like, hey, like Moses does later on in Exodus. And he's like, hey, show me your glory. Like, I wonder what God's plan is. I'm out here on the run. God meets him in an unexpected place, reveals something really bizarre to it, reaffirms a promise just randomly in the middle of a random place that doesn't have any special value. And God comes out and just says, hey, man, there's stuff going behind the scenes, and I've connected these places, and they're still connected. And I want to reveal to you that things are happening, just not in the way that you think.
Yeah.
And the fact that he still does that today, I think that Cade said it really well. He says, the hope in me asks, man, why is this not more of a reality in our lives? Why couldn't this happen everywhere we look? The answer for me is that it does open up our spiritual eyes, and we can see God doing this. He's there in this place, and we didn't even know it.
Yeah.
Favorite story in the Bible. And the fact that is like, your experience in that hall or at Green Valley or on a mountaintop, like that's there.
Yeah.
And I think that God is like giving our heart just like a little, this is real, dude. Yeah. This is real. It
was already there. You just need to open your eyes to see it.
Yeah.
But to your point, there's no hoops for Jacob to jump through. It's almost as if God is already acknowledging, you're not good enough for this, but I'm going to bless you with it anyway.
Yeah. Which is the whole story of the Bible, man.
That's it, man.
That's what Paul says, man. Even though you're still sinners, like God sent Christ to die for you. Yeah. And that's not just then. That's back here in the Old Testament. But this is not. You and I like to talk all about burgers and everything else.
Yes.
But we've got some more stuff to go to.
Yeah.
Really quick.
If we can get to it.
Yeah. Let's fast forward a little bit.
Okay.
In fact, we're going to fast forward a lot of it.
Yeah.
We're going to skip the rest of Jacob and his immediate family, and let's go to they're in Egypt. God saved his people from Egypt through Moses and has delivered them through the Red Sea, plagues, parts of the Red Sea, brings them out into the foot of this mountain named Sinai. And we're going to get a little bit more of heaven on earth, just a little bit. And that's kind of the title for our thing, is a little bit closer.
Yeah.
A little bit closer. Yeah. We're seeing these little heaven hotspots.
Yes.
But we have to talk about the tabernacle if we're going to talk about any of this.
Absolutely.
This kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
Where do you even want to start?
Okay. So, do we want to ask that question or just keep going?
Go for it.
No, okay. So a question for you guys. Is there a place in your house that holds some special, it's a special place in your house, either a special chair that you sit in, or a special nook that you go to, or, a special part of the yard that you can sit in and observe, like whatever. It's just like, that's something, that spot in my house holds special meaning to me. And if that, what would that be for you?
Can you guess?
It's probably having to do with the kitchen. I'm guessing something having to do with coffee.
Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Am I that easy to read? That's unfortunate.
Pretty much.
Nah, there's this leather chair in our, and it's, it's not a recliner or anything. Leather chair that's got a little plant next to it and a little lamp. And that's like, I sat there today and worked on stuff.
Yeah.
It's my spot.
It's your spot.
It's the holiest.
And it's
in my house.
It's that spot. And when you're in that spot, like you experience.
There's a feeling.
Yeah.
There's an aesthetic. There's a drive. I think that comes sitting in that spot
because I'm there at that spot.
Yeah, and it's self-created. You know. But
okay, so is there a spot like that for you? Please share it with us in the comments. I want to know. I had a favorite chair. It has in recent months left the house.
Oh.
So I still have kind of a favorite, a spot, but it's not the chair anymore. So I don't know.
I'm so sorry.
Anyway, that's all right. It's life happens. Things happen. So
does it? I'm sorry.
it was old and falling apart.
Still,
we need to get rid of it anyway.
That's hard to do.
I just haven't replaced it yet. But that's not the point. So we're going to talk about the tabernacle. So we're 400 years past Jacob now. The people are heading towards the promised land, and God is basically going, okay, when you get there, there's some ways I want you to live. He gives the people his law. But then if you look through Exodus, it's not just the rules that he gives them, because he even has more of those in some of the other books in the Old Testament. But there's this whole blueprint of how to build this worship place that we call the tabernacle, which is just a really big tent, but it had a lot of different things inside it that were to be used for sacrifices and worship and things like that. Yeah. And just the way that, I mean, the details that God gives his people, like design the light fixtures, in this way,
curtains and the rods,
all the embroidery, the kind of thread to use, the designs to use, all that kind of stuff was very meticulous. And it's reflective. Everything that you see in there is reflective, not just of sacrifices and those kind of things. It is part of that, but it's reflective of a place where when you come here, this doesn't look like anywhere else.
There's gold. There's
gold.
Everything.
There's special yarn that you don't have your clothes made out of, or your own tents and stuff made out of. This is specific to this place. So when you come here, this is unique, and this is special, and special things happen here. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so there's descriptions of the book of Exodus, and you're welcome to to read. We won't take the time to do that tonight, but in essence, the whole purpose behind it is God is going to use that place, and he used it through the rest of the Old Testament, or at least through the rest of his experience with the people in the wilderness, like to meet with his people and to be with them. So whenever they recognize that, whenever this cloud that represents God's presence comes into the tabernacle, it's like, oh, God's here, and Moses or Aaron or whoever else would go in and meet and come back out. But it represented like God being here.
And this is God like we've never seen him before, even in the garden, because this is different. Because you've got that God that was so accessible and everything, but now there's every time that our God is in the temple, there's fire, there's trumpets, there's light, there's smoke, like it's an event. And whenever Moses enters into the tent, everybody stands outside of their tents and looks
and watches him walk that way.
Yeah. And it's an
awe-inspiring thing.
I kind of wish, and I mean, it happened once in the Old Testament. And we're going to get to this in a couple weeks. But they built up the not the tabernacle, the temple again, and they're like, all right, let's wait for God to come down. Just like that. And it doesn't happen in that way, at least the way that it happened before. And they're like, well, that's killjoy. That's unfortunate. Right. Did we build it right? But like this, for me, I mean, that'd be awesome. It would be so, real talk. It would be really, really easy for me to come to church. I feel like if, you got up in the morning, you looked out and you could see the smoke coming up from Flagstone Church, because that's where, God's presence dwells and everything. Yeah. And it's like, oh yeah, where's your church? Oh yeah, well, you see this constant smoke and stuff. That's the presence of our God. Like, that's cool.
And I think even beyond that, just to give you a little bit of insight, as they're walking through the wilderness, they don't know where they're going. And so the scripture tells us that God led them. And when it was the daytime, it was this giant cloud. And I guess it looked different than the rest of the clouds, or maybe there weren't that many clouds out there in the desert. So they're like, that's God, follow that cloud. And then if they're traveling at night, because sometimes that was the easier thing to do, it was some kind of a pillar of fire. I don't know exactly what that looked like, but that was God's presence there. So that's out there, and we're following that direction. But at the tabernacle, this is where God comes.
Yeah.
He's not off in a distance.
Yep. And it's not a portal either.
Right.
This is different.
It's not a dream or a vision. It is a cloud coming down, and God is here.
Yeah.
Now, obviously God's bigger than that. It's not just that he's here, but his presence is with his people.
Yeah.
And in that's even, we were talking about these two worlds of heaven and earth, and they're kind of touching each other with Jacob in that dream. They're almost, it's like the Venn diagram. They're almost kind of crossing into each other's realms.
If it's red and blue, there's a little bit of purple.
There's a little bit of purple here. Yeah. But I want to as we need to wrap up, but why do you think that was even important to God?
Yeah. And that's the question, man. Because why does God want to be with these people? Why does God want to be with us?
Mm-hmm.
Because I look at those people and I look at Jacob and I look at Abraham and I see a lot of myself and I see a lot of like, dude, why would God want to go through all that trouble just to be close? I mean, here in this example, I mean, it really is, it's God moving into the neighborhood. Mm-hmm. This is a foreign embassy, the president of the foreign embassy coming and living in your neighborhood.
Right.
Like, and it's hard to even contextualize. But why does God love his people so much? Why does he love his creation so much that he wants to go through all of that? And that's just the cool question. I mean, it's because we all have an inherent worth, and because we're made in his image, and we're his children. We're his sons and his daughters, made in the image of Christ as masterpieces for our good works, which is so cool. That's in Ephesians chapter 2. But he wants to be with us. And so this is like, part 2 or part 1B or something like that of this plan. But it's not quite what it needs to be yet.
Right.
Because we've got a little bit.
It's not completely heaven and earth.
Yeah, we said that they're like touching, but we've got a long ways to go before they're all the way back because of, I mean, why can't you just bring it right back? And I know that
we're going to talk about that for sure.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's God doing the work, because I know we need to wrap up, but man, every other religion just about that you can think of that has some kind of a deity. I mean, going back to ancient stuff, obviously they had to go to the temple and they had to do all these different things. And I'm saying the Israelites had to bring sacrifices and stuff too, but it was God creating this opportunity for them to connect with each other. No other deity did that. Yeah. Go through Greek and Roman mythology.
Well, even the stuff now. I mean, I have to do all of the things so that I can become, one with God.
Yeah. It's so much effort on our part, and it's so much like I've got to accomplish this, or I've got to make this happen. And I think for me, just one of the takeaways from everything we talked about tonight is, again, God telling his people, just like he told Jacob, like, let me come to you.
Yeah.
Quit trying to do my job. I want us to be connected. I want us to be in the same space. Let me come do that. Because first of all, we have sin in our lives where it makes it impossible for us to get to where he is anyway. But second of all, like we just fail at it miserably. We wouldn't occupy the space and bring he and us together in such an amazing way that he can do that for us.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Which is just an amazing thing to be that loved by that powerful a being. What an awesome thing.
Yeah. And how intimate that is, that he wants to do that for each and every one of us.
And that hasn't quit. We're talking stuff thousands of years ago. He's still like, let me come connect with you.
Which is so cool, because that's the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, ? Indwelling of.
Yes. Yes. We're going to get there.
Last thing I think that we want to leave y'all with, besides that, man, God uses imperfect people to accomplish his purposes. Here's another flawed dude that he says, man, I'm going to bless the whole world through you. If he can do that with them, I think he can do it with us.
Yeah.
But to really let the tabernacle illustrate the fact that not everybody can go in the tabernacle, especially not to the space,
the inner
where
sanctum,
God,
the Holy of Holies.
The Holy of Holies. And because only the high priest could do it, only after a really long ritual and only one time a year.
Right.
So the closeness with God, like, God's in the neighborhood, but like,
there's still some distance.
In my mind, he's close, but he's far away.
Yeah.
Like he's close, but he's far away.
Yeah.
And so we're going to continue to talk about that. But there's a problem that we need to address, that God needs to address. That he does address through the tabernacle, and saying, like, man, if we want to be close, here's the ways that we're going to
We got to get the sin thing out of the way first.
Yeah. And that's kind of what we're talking about within the next 2 weeks of like, there's something internal that we have to change. Yeah. There's something internal that we have to change. But next week, what are we going to talk about?
We're going to talk about like where exactly is God living? Is he up in the heavens? Is he down here? Is it both? Is it neither? That's what we're going to talk about. Where exactly do we find God? Yeah. And so we'll kind of leave that. That's your teaser for next week. Okay. We'll talk about that next week.
Cool. Well, thank you guys so much for all of your comments and for joining us in this conversation. Marshall and I are learning a lot about this subject.
Absolutely.
And are just excited to talk about it every week. So.
And you guys are welcome to message us or even make comments after we shut the live feed off or ask questions or whatever. We'd love to have more discussion with you. And Cade, whenever you want to go get some Wright's barbecue, let me know. We'll do that.
Also, I think you need to talk to your wife a little bit about that chair. I think you guys have some things to.
What did she say?
She said, "Stop complaining about your chair."
I'm not complaining. I'm saying you asked if there was a special chair. I have one.
And somebody else said, "I bet Chrissy got rid of the chair he's talking about."
Yeah, it's gone. And I'm agreeing. It was old. It was falling apart. Like, I get it.
But that was the holiest of holies.
I just haven't replaced it. I haven't replaced it. Was the point that I was making. I wasn't complaining about not having it anymore. I'm like, I don't have this. Anyway, we need to wrap up.
I think that's super funny. Well, thank you guys for joining us. Just catch up with us next week. Same time, same place.
Okay. See you guys. Have a good week.
Guys.